Welcome everyone. This is the Platform SIG meeting. Today we are on January the 14th, 2025. So that's the first meeting of the year. Around the virtual table, for the time being, we have Mark Waite and Chris Stern, and of course myself, your host. So on the agenda, we will talk about the end of support for Java 11. That's maybe the last time we talk about that. In this meeting, we'll talk about the container image updates for the Jenkins controller and agents. We'll talk about the work in progress on images. There will be a short section about RISC-V, and then we'll talk about the tip and tail model that Jenkins is following more or less. First subject then, the end of support for Java 11. So it's been a while now. The container repo for the controller has dropped Java 11 quite a few months ago, I would say. It has gone with Jenkins 2.4.6.3 and the LTS 2.4.7.1, has dropped support for Java 11 last October. Oh, Chris, you're there. And Kenneth also. That's pretty cool. Let me add you to the list of attendees. Kenneth, we'll talk about the pull request you started a few weeks ago, I think now. And frankly, I am not able to explain what's going on. So it's cool that you're there to let us know what's going on, Kenneth. And okay, I thought I had seen Kevin. I daydream now. Whatever. Let's continue. So the Jenkins 2.4.7.9.2 has been released on November 27, and the 2.4.7.9.3 has been released last week, thanks to Chris, our release leader. So we don't have anybody from the infra team, but the infra team is said to be willing to continue Java 11 for a while, but one of these days, maybe next year or the year after, Java 11 won't be available Jenkins infra anymore. But for the time being, there is no timeline that has been set. Mark, would you have anything to say about that, or did I cover it good?
It's a very real thing that if Java 11, well, let's phrase it this way. The Jenkins project, Jenkins core, does not support Java 11. So there's not a lot of compelling reason for the Jenkins infra team to continue, except that there are many, many plugins that still build with Java 11. And so one activity is get those plugins to quit building with Java 11. And then as we go through that process, then we can consider, should we remove Java 11 completely from the Jenkins infra? The other is that the infra team warns that if Java 11 no longer receives security updates, they will remove it immediately. So when the Java vendors stop providing security updates for Java 11, that would be the end of life for Java 11, whether or not plugins are still using it. The infra team won't leave a tool in the Jenkins toolbox that is not getting security updates.
Mark, is the infra team using only Xamarin throughout the whole infrastructure, or do we have some straight installation, for example, like Microsoft JDK for some Windows machines, or is it Xamarin just about everywhere? Should we just focus on Xamarin security updates, or should we have a look at other vendors too?
So they've, as far as I know, they've intentionally chosen Xamarin everywhere. There might be one or two places where a Linux variant is using a package manager to install Java in addition to the Xamarin variants, but I'm not aware of one. The infra team's intent really is to use Xamarin everywhere.
Pretty cool. Regarding the plugin, there has been the beginning of an unofficial campaign to try and update the plugins to JDK 17 or even 21, but that's just the beginning, thanks to a tool called the Plugin Modernizer tools, and that's a subject we'll address during the upcoming Jenkins Contributor Summit happening in Brussels the last day of January. Nice transition, right? Now, let's talk about, thanks a lot, Mark. Let's talk about the container image updates. So we have seen an LTS last week, and of course, the Docker image as updated to the latest Jenkins LTS. And we have seen a few version bumps, for example, for Debian Alpine, but also something that won't affect the end users. For example, we changed the version of update CLI, and we use now the native Temurin source for update CLI in order to find the right version of the Temurin package. I've seen, Mark, that you also had pinned the UB9 container to the latest version available, but you're still doing that manually. And
no, that was automation. That was tooling that did that, as far as I know. Or the intent is tooling will do it in the future, and I think tooling did it most recently.
Because I saw your name, that's why.
Yeah, and that one I detected because we had inadvertently put it as 9.5 without the trailing suffix. And that gives us an indeterminate 9.5 variant. We don't like indeterminate 9.5 variants because friends don't let friends use latest.
Oh, I love this one. Yes, indeed. Because I saw earlier that we have an update CLI manifest for the Docker SSH agent or for the Docker agent, but we don't have one yet for the Jenkins controller. So that's why I was wondering if some tooling was already existing or not. That's why I thought it was a manual in the version.
No, I think we're using Dependabot on the controller side. At least that's what I use in the platform labeler, and I think that's what we also use on the controller.
Okay, that's why. Thank you, Mark. Now, as for the weeklies, the usual suspects. So a few version bumps for Debian and Alpine, the update CLI also, and the UB9 container. I don't know why it's written as maintenance and not dependency, by the way, but whatever. So this led to 2 new releases for the SSH agents. No, it's not linked. Why did I say it leads to? Nothing to do. It's for the agents. So 2 new releases for the SSH agent with just 2 version bumps, the Alpine Linux and Debian Worm, and 3 new releases for the Docker agent, but nothing changes except version bumps. So nothing major, nothing new. Now, as for the work in progress on images, we still have on the controller one long-running PR, which is optimized Debian Docker files. It has already been reviewed by Damien, but there is still work to do before it can be merged, if ever it gets merged one of these days. Now, the fixed handling of third parameter in inbound agent is not working yet, if I'm not mistaken. There is still work to do before this one gets merged. So it's just adding handling for the -third parameter in Jenkins agent. But as Damien say, it's not complete yet. It won't work as it is. And now the best for the end, the Docker SSH agent patch to support audit. How is it supposed to be called? Audit D? Yeah, I guess so. Login UID inability.
I think you should make Kenneth pronounce it because he's the one who did all the work on it.
It shows the title and you work on. Yes, Ganesh.
So this is for login user ID immutabilities. So in the proc file system, in /proc/self, there's a file called login user ID, login UID. And if you have the Linux kernel capability for audit control turned off, if you have it disabled, then that file becomes immutable. And if that file is immutable, then when you log in with SSH, when it tries to update that with the ID of the user who's logging in, it will fail. And if you have PAM, if you scroll to the line where I have the 3 PAM module lines, go down, more. Keep going.
Yeah, that's a long running.
It was definitely a long running thread. Keep going. It was after Damien's question. It was after my test. Keep going. Right.
Yeah,
right there. So the last one, you see where it says session required PAM _login user ID.so. So that means required means that if that fails, your login process will get killed by PAM. If you set it to optional, it's going to fail if you have an immutable login user ID. But if it's optional, then PAM just silently passes it, and your SSH login continues. So we need to be able to support this if if somebody's Docker platform is locked down where they don't have the audit control capability enabled, either purposely or unbeknownst to them, like me, for security reasons. And it is a more secure environment if you have it disabled, because basically anybody, if you allow somebody to update that file with an arbitrary user ID, then the GNU library, the C library, when it does a get login a POSIX call, it'll read that file, and if you just put some arbitrary user ID, it'll report that you're some other user. So it is a security flaw to have it enabled. So I'm proposing that we change that required to optional. This used to be in Docker's official documentation. This was the only way to get SSH to work in a Docker container. And for some reason, they deleted the documentation. I have no idea why, and it's still the case in this example.
Okay, now I understand a little bit better. Thank you.
And then the message of the day kind of comes along as a surrogate problem. So if your login user ID module fails, it also seems to execute the message of the day dynamic update, and it suddenly in your SSH banner shows the message of the day, which we don't want to see in our agent because it shows as, some extraneous garbage text, right? So we always set a message of the day disabled in SSH. However, this PAM module overrides that, and it still prints the message of the day. So we have to basically disable all three of these lines, and that's what my patch does.
Okay. And you're pretty confident that this will work whatever the platform may be?
I've tested it. Yeah, I've tested in every possible combination. So I've tested it when I have the capabilities disabled and I need it.
Yeah.
And I've tested it when I have the capabilities enabled and I don't need it, and it still works.
Sounds cool. Thanks a lot. I learned quite a few things about Docker reading this discussion, because I even didn't know about capabilities before this thread. I know how to use Docker without knowing that.
It's very fine grained, right? So the purpose of capabilities is to limit the power of root.
Mhm.
So you could disable very specific capabilities, and even the root user can't do things. And you'll notice in my testing right there where I tried as root to update my login user ID, and it's denied. Yeah, the example right above that before I reran it with the capability enabled right there. See, it says operation not permitted. So this is exactly how the Linux kernel can reduce the power of root.
Sounds cool.
Pretty neat stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing that I find that amazing that no one else ran into this yet.
You must be a super power user or something like that.
I have a secure system, I guess.
Yeah. Nobody cares about security but you. No, just kidding. Thanks a lot for that, Kenneth, and the explanation that goes along. Oh, that was cool. Mark, if you don't mind, we'll go to RIS5 if we still have time. Let's talk a little bit about the Jenkins release model presentation that you gave to the Java JEP 14 working group a few weeks ago. I think it was before the Christmas break, right?
Yeah, I don't know that this group needs to know anything other than that all the things you already know were shared with this working group inside the Java development organization. Java has used the tip and tail model for a long time, and we're the happy beneficiaries of it. Where what tip means for them is Java 23 and Java 24, and tail for them means yes, tip is the latest, and tail is the LTS line. So we rely on 17 as a tail line that they continue to support, and we rely on 21 as a tail line that they continue to support. And they wanted to hear, hey, how are we dealing with it, and how are we dealing with libraries that might be considering going to tip and tail model. And I was able to give examples of both conditions. There are certainly some libraries on which Jenkins depends that use a tip model. That's the common one. But there are also a number of libraries where we depend on them using a tail model, and we intentionally continue to use the tail versions. So it was they had good questions, they had good insights. They reminded me that I had failed to insert a slide describing what LTS is and what weekly is. It's so second nature to me that I don't even think about it. I forgot to tell them that these are these things that we do. So I added those to that slide deck. The concepts are in the slide deck and highlighted. 2 + 2 + 2 was a good one to present to them, saying, hey, look, we drop a Java version before you do. And we know that. And we've intentionally chosen to do that because we can't support more than 2 Java versions at any one time. So for me, it was a great chance for them to hear our concept, and I really appreciated that they were willing to listen. Will there be any major change from them for us? No, because we're well aligned with what they do.
So is that a regular meeting? Will this happen again this year, or?
I believe these working groups meet periodically. Yes, they will meet and they will hear from other open source
but not from us.
components.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So in this presentation that I did, it was me representing Jenkins and Oleg Nanashev representing Gradle. They'll then have others present to share how they're doing. I assume they'll have someone from Apache talk. They'll probably have someone from Spring Framework talk, and those kinds of places where, hey, here's a large scale, widely used thing. What are they doing in terms of their release model?
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, we still have time to talk a little bit about RISC-V. Some of you already know that I'm pretty much interested in this platform because it's not mainstream yet. You know, as soon as something becomes mainstream, well, ARM64, it's so old. No, nobody cares about that. No, just kidding. It's been working for what, 5 years, Mark, for Jenkins ARM64. So it's routine. Then why not, or why add RISC-V? Last time we met, end of 2024, I made a pretty bold statement saying that Alpine is known to put and run on a few machines owned by Bruno. Let's see. Not really. In fact, you can do it, but it's only for the web, as I wrote. Alpine does provide a mini root file system for RISC-V 64, but there is no bootable image, so to speak. So you could do that if you build your own U-boot and then your own image, and then you combine everything into a SD card, then yes, it could work, but there is nothing usable as is, and we don't have time to mess with that. Ubuntu only works for the NISA something board and the Mango Pi MQ Pro, which is based on the same SoC. So we already made the demonstration 2 years ago at FOSDEM with Mango Pi MQ Pro. We installed JDK 20 something, 20 or 21. It was alpha release at that time, and we had a Jenkins agent working on that. Pretty slow because that's just a one-core CPU, but it was working, so we knew something was working already. There is also Debian, who made a bold statement also at the beginning of the year, saying that the Trixie Alpha Release 1 was compatible with RISC-V 64, and that it was working for a few boards. Yes, that's pretty exciting. We'll see. It's supposed to work on the Star 64. Last year, we met the CEO of Pine 64 in FOSDEM, and he gave to the Jenkins project Star 64. So that's a board based on the JH7110 SoC that already works with a few distros, but works is a big word for something that works. Anyway. So we'll see if Debian can work with that better than what we have working now. It's there on my desk, working with another distro, which is called Phoenix because it's from Pine 64, but it's stuck with a finite list of packages. You can't have any new package. You have to rebuild lots of things. Frankly, it's difficult to work with it. Nonetheless, we have a Jenkins agent working on it, but it's not super cool because, for example, we don't have Docker on this machine. I cross-compiled Docker for this machine, but it refuses to start, maybe because of a kernel problem. So it's not readily available. It's not working as we'd like it to work. So my experience with RISC-V is not super exciting for the time being. It's working on a very few boards and with lots of headaches included. So I was wondering, would it make sense to add a RISC-V 64 Docker image for some agents? We are still relying on Bookworm, which is perfectly normal. That's a LTS version of Debian. And RISC-V 64 is not available for Bookworm. It's only available for Trixie or SID. So there's no way we are working with SID or Trixie yet. We will have to wait until we have an LTS version of Debian that can deal with RISC-V. Alpine has been supplying it from 3.20. So we already using Alpine 3.20 something, I think, in most of the agents. Oh, sorry, Mark, I hadn't seen your hand. You raised your hand.
Yeah. So you mentioned Debian testing and Debian SID, so Debian unstable.
Yeah.
I actually run both of those in the platform labeler test environment. So in my test environment that I use with agents allocated on Google Cloud, they're running fine as agents. Now those are AMD 64 machines, not even ARM 64, and certainly not RISC-V because none of the cloud providers provide any RISC-V hardware. But unstable and testing both actually work very well. Okay, back to your comments. So
I was almost finished. Sorry for not seeing your hand beforehand. So nobody but me is asking for it. So should we add a RISC-V image and hope that some people will use them, or as this costs some money, should we refrain from doing so and just waiting for the need to come?
yeah, so for me, until we're not having to build Docker ourselves on RISC-V, until Docker's providing a RISC-V container image or somebody's distro is, I think adding our own RISC-V container image is premature. At least for me, it is. Not that you should stop experimenting. I think that's great, but I don't want to spend the time, and I really don't want the Jenkins security team to tell us that we have to fix something in a RISC-V container image.
Of course. As far as I know, there is only one distro that supplies Docker for RISC-V 64. Now, I think it's called Bamboo or something like that. So I'm on the same line. It's way too premature.
Yeah, but I mean, the architectures or the providers are evolving rapidly, and there's an awful lot of interest in it. So I think we can reasonably expect that Docker will in the not too distant future support it, and the standard distros will support it as we get more and more hardware.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I was pretty confident this would work quite fast, quite quickly, because I had one board with an official Ubuntu image and distro, and already working with Java. So I was, whoa, this will work. But no, it was just one board, and since then nothing moved. Ubuntu doesn't support any other RISC-V board. And since then, I feel like I'm back in 2015 when I was working with ARM 64. You have to recompile just about everything. Yesterday, I saw a tweet saying that the company wanted to launch a RISC-V laptop this year. And I say, okay, hardware-wise, that makes sense. Software-wise, no way. I mean, it's even not the Linux of the desktop year 2025. So RISC-V Linux on the desktop, I think it's way too premature. We'll have to wait a little bit more. Oh, thank you for listening to my rants. Would you have any other subject you'd like to address during this meeting? Okay, then let's wrap it up. Thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for coming to this meeting. We'll meet 2 weeks from now, just before FOSDEM, and the recording should be available from 24 to 48 hours. Until next time, happy Jenkins. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.